afternoon and welcome. I'm Holly Tucker. I'm the director of the Robert Penn Warren Center for the Humanities at Vanderbilt University. And I'm absolutely delighted to introduce our speaker today. I've been a long fan of his writing, and as I said a moment earlier to him, as I have to watch out from getting too fangirly, it's my pleasure to introduce Rick Bragg. And how I'll introduce him is through the clearly understated bio blurb in his book. Rick Bragg, Pulitzer Prize winning, is the Pulitzer Prize winning author of 11 books, including the best-selling Ava's Man and All Over But the Shoutin'. He is also a regular contributor to Garden and Gun magazine and Southern Living. He lives in Alabama. Now, if you're here, you know that just covers a little teeny centimeter inch of the work that Rick does. And you also know that he is a jewel among the best Southern writers. Moreover, a jewel among the best contemporary writers around. So we're going to be talking today about your book, The Speckled Beauty, right, Rick?
Right.
A Dog and His People by Rick Bragg. Thank you for being here. And
No, it's my pleasure. This is, it's not as good as being in the sunshine there on outside the War Memorial, but it's, I tell you, it talking about books doesn't have a bad place to do it. So it's my pleasure. And thank y'all for having me.
And you said that Speck was, we'll talk in a few minutes about Speck, but you said he was out and about running around raising hell. But we at least have a picture of him there behind you.
Yeah, I tried to get him in front of the Zoomer for at least a second or two, but he's out on the mountainside right now terrorizing some creature, but some wayward possum or something. But he doesn't listen to me anyway. But one of the bookstores made a gigantic poster, and so me and Speck's here in spirit. Let's put it that way.
Well, can we introduce him a little bit for those who may not have already read your book? Could I ask you to maybe read the first couple of paragraphs?
Yeah. This sums him up a little bit. I'll try to read it.
Well, I know I didn't have my glasses on when I was reading the back cover, and that's why I stammered a little bit because
I can't.
It's harder to read.
I couldn't see a purple donkey if it walked through here. So this is the introduction. It's entitled "Guilty as Sin and One Eye Shining." The driveway is a winding quarter mile, a dim green tunnel through tangled pines and mountain pasture, fractured by dappled sunlight on the clear, hot days. Flashes of color of blue jays, yellow hammers, and an emerald blur of hummingbirds crisscross the rusted barbed wire, and mockingbirds touch down on cedar posts that were cut from this mountain 100 years before. White-tailed deer and wild turkey, like periscopes, spy over tall, sharp blades of Johnson grass, and white egrets, rare here in the red dirt up so high, pose on one leg in the flat brown water of the pond. And it all seems painted on somehow, as if someone dreamed it up on a slow day with an easy mind and hung it on the air. And then he rumbles in and goes to raising all kinds of hell. The dog, running half blind, tongue out and wide open, intercepts my truck halfway up the drive, and the wild things scatter to the corners of the earth. He yells and twists and bounces to a hard stop right on some mark only he can find, usually smack dab in a red ant bed or a mud hole, but always safely away from the main road, as if he can remember all the meanness and suffering there, and knows this mountain is his sanctuary and his last stand. Run too far, I think he believes, and you fall off the world. I know this is reading a lot into a dog who falls asleep in his food bowl suffers a shivering apoplexy every time you rub his belly, and acts as if every wayward possum is a sign of the end of times. But I don't think any dog knows home better than one thrown away once already. That's my awful dog.
I love the opening to that. It brought me right into the book, and I didn't stop reading until, well, it was done. Tell me what he's done in the last, I don't know, last day or two. What's he been up to?
Oh God. Well, I mean, there is no happiness. I mean, it's just, you have to, as I say in the book, if you want a good dog, then that's fine on a slow day or an easy day or a sunny day or even a happy day. A good dog is good for all those days. But if you encounter those days, Larry McMurtry, one of my favorite writers, described it as being beside a river of melancholy. That some people are born beside a river like that, and some people, life takes them, drifts them down to a place like that. And on an empty day or a sad day, you need a bad dog. You need a dog that'll take that day and tear it up, tear it to pieces all around you. And in that case, he's the best dog there is. Yesterday, a couple of days ago, I came in from a short book tour. All book tours now are truncated, and came back in from New Orleans, and he had gone down to the pasture and found every oasis of donkey manure for 40 acres. For 40 acres. Now, he didn't find one or two or three. My mother told me that he went and rolled one by one by one. And why did he do this? Because he knew I was coming home.
Now, does he pout when you're gone? How much trouble is he giving your mom these days when you're?
Oh, it's constant something. It's he does pout. He when I pull up in the yard after being gone, and this stuff about how dogs can't tell time, they can't tell how many days or weeks have passed. I just don't buy it, because if I go to lunch and drive back up in the yard in my pickup, he's bouncing and happy, and because he knows there's bacon in it somewhere. In one of my shirt pockets, there'll be like some bacon. But if I go on a long trip, he waits till I get up in the yard to make sure it's me, and then he runs away. And he runs to the top of the ridgeline and sits and looks at me to show me, to demonstrate that he's unhappy. And he ignores me for 30 minutes or an hour.
Well, so, I love the Speck's list, where you're making the grocery list for Speck.
Mm-hmm.
Sliced ham, sliced turkey, sliced chicken, cocktail weenies, 7 rubber balls, 6 to bury, 1 to chew, a new collar with fluorescent stripe, assorted treats, giant bones stuffed with peanut butter, dog bed. But you scratch that one out, because what do you do to the dog bed?
He eats dog beds. And the more expensive they are, the less amount of time they last. And I'm not making this up. He can take $100 dog bed and reduce it to scraps and that stuff that they put in the inside. It just blows through the yard like snow. He hates a dog bed, and I don't know why. Now, he doesn't mind getting at the foot of my bed, which is.
Now, how do you let him do that after he's been running? How do you let him get to the foot of your bed, or even in the house, after he's been running in all that manure?
Well, you stop him if you notice it quick enough, but sometimes he busts through the screen door before you can get him stopped. And, it's not a matter, and I'm not trying to be cute here. It's not a matter of whether or not you have to change the bedclothes. It's a matter of whether or not you can save the mattress or may have to burn the mattress. And without exaggeration, we've gone through two. I've only had the dog 4 years. So,
I think you talk about how you give him a bath. Do you ever give him a bath, and does he
yeah,
get
of
up?
course, I try to give him a bath. I try valiantly to give him a bath. I mean, I get him. I fill the big giant aluminum tub up full of water. I let it warm in the sun so it won't shock him. I lift him up and heave him in there, and it's like a cartoon. Now he doesn't mind playing in mud puddles, and he doesn't mind scuba diving in the stock pond. If the water is muddy or murky or slimy or algae ridden, he loves water. But good, clean water, he despises. And he looks like a cartoon. His feet will like start moving on, the Jesus lizard. Have you seen those things on National Geographic?
No, I
we call it the Jesus lizard, and it's a lizard that can actually walk on water.
Okay.
And Speck looks like the Jesus lizard when I try to plop him down in the water. It's embarrassing. But yeah, we do our best to bathe him. Doing your best isn't always effective. I have done my best at many things in my life and still failed. So,
Well, one thing that is so interesting is how your mom interacts with him now. Because she couldn't stand that dog at the very beginning, could she?
no, nobody really liked him at the very beginning. None of my people liked him. And I don't blame him. I mean, he was, he terrorized everything. He terrorized the cats. We had, at that time, 13 cats. Feral cats were already on the mountain when we moved in, and their descendants have just, they come and go. And finally, I took a stand, and I'm not exaggerating, we got something like 40 cats spayed and neutered.
I know you love cats, right?
Yeah, I do not like cats, but we got them spayed and neutered to stop the explosion of population. So, but he terrorized the ones that were left. He fought the other dogs. He stampeded the livestock. He would go lie in the other dog's food bowl to take a nap so they couldn't eat their own food. He I'm trying to think of a good Saturday afternoon family friendly word for peeing on everything. He peed on everything. He peed on he destroyed my mama's flower garden. He destroyed, $50,000 tractors, and didn't quite destroy them, but he sure marked them up pretty good. And but worst is his grave robbing. He would find these deer carcasses, and we live way, way out in the country. And he would find these deer carcasses left by a hunter or some that died naturally. And he would drag the whole thing up in the yard and sit and gnaw on pieces of it like a jawbone or a leg bone. And the smell was beyond my powers of description. And so nobody liked him, and I began to doubt whether I had made a good decision or not. But some decisions you just have to live with.
You started by reading the first few paragraphs, and as I think I mentioned, I've read them out loud to a couple of friends as I was getting ready for our meeting. And one friend said, "Stop, stop, stop! I can't think about another book where the dog dies at the end." And that's very much, the heroic dog, that trope. You mentioned that you didn't want to write a Call of the Wild or an Old Yeller, that you didn't want to write a tearjerker dead dog story.
No, I wasn't going to do that.
First of all, Speck is alive and well, clearly. But what you know, knock on wood, but what would you have written the book? Let's just
No,
imagine that
no.
Speck got in really big trouble. What would that have meant to your book as you
Well, it's real easy. You know, you don't always get to write the book that you want to write. And this book was not the book I wanted to write. I wanted to write a bad dog book about a bad dog and its effect on me, because the whole world does revolve around me, or at least I thought it did until I got this dog and realized it revolved around him. But I wanted to write about how a bad dog, the right bad dog, can tear up those long days, those days where you think that you've just got all your life is behind you, not ahead of you, and it does seem a little bit like every day is just cocktail hour to Howard Johnson's. A lot of people get that way. I'm not saying that we're anything special.
But he
But
came into life at, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, but that's not the book I got to write. My brother Sam, who has been the spine and the backbone of every book that I've ever done, got sick with pancreatic cancer. And if you look at the book, you can see how the book, I didn't go back and redo anything. The book is kind of written in real time.
Yeah.
And I went back and tightened up and took a few things out, but I didn't go back and redo the narrative. And that became the soul of the book. My brother hated Speck, just hated Speck. Yet Speck, having that sense that all dogs have, it's nothing new. People tell me all the time that, well, you should have known that would happen, that when your brother got sick, the dog would sense that and the dog would cleave to him. Well, he did. And toward the end of my brother's life, he and Speck would sit out in lawn chairs. Speck didn't have a lawn chair, but they would sit out and watch the sunset. And my brother would just put his hand on the dog's head. He used to spit on his head. I mean, he hated my dog. And the dog just seemed to know when people needed him the most. And I don't think that's magic. I don't think that makes him a magic dog. But I think a lot of people who have had dogs like that will go, oh, yeah, my dog did that. And so I didn't want to write about losing my brother in a damn dog book. I didn't want that to happen. So I stopped it while my brother was still with us.
That was, first, let me say how very sorry I am.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. He was the last great Southern man.
And we got to know him so well in your previous writings.
Well, thank you. The thing I learned is that all that stuff about, you can't keep anybody alive in a book. All you can do is maybe save a little bit of their wisdom, maybe. And I think maybe we did that. And this one allowed me to save more. But I had to stop the book while he was still with us. But yeah, no, I had decided that and believe me, this is an unusual conversation to have with your agent when you say, look, if the dog dies, we just, I don't know what we'll do, but we just won't be able to have a book. That's not a happy conversation that you want to.
Well, that's sort of what I was aiming at, because I'd seen in another interview that you got said you did tell your agent, and I thought, whoa, that takes where most people would say, oh, that's going to lend the added drama to it, and it will follow the narrative arc, and to tell your agent, look, we better hope nothing happens to Speck.
Yeah, but I also having the best literary agent in the world. You don't really tell her anything, really. You kind of, you kind of like feel a little bit like the street urchin, who sidles up to the mean uh, 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 head robber and says the word I don't know, but anyway, toward the end, toward the end of the book, um, and it became clear that Speck was actually going to survive. You know, uh, all I could do then was think, please, Lord, just when people ask me that question, well, is Speck still okay? A year after the book is done, I'd be able to say, yep, he's right out here gnawing on something valuable. But
well, there's something. Well, there are many, many things that are interesting about Speck and his place in your family, his place in your life. There's one moment where Speck does he tear a ligament in his leg, and you're
yeah, he tore his ACL, and on the left side, and his hind leg was pretty much, useless. And the vet, I go to the vet thinking it's the end of the world. What are we going to do? And the vet usually responds by saying, "Oh yeah, I can fix that." And they repair it very similar to the way they repair a human. And the list of things that they do just boggles the mind. And the problem is that it requires a sedentary period of 6 months before you're supposed to be able to let him. Well, as soon as he got out of the car on 3 legs, he is running up the mountainside, and I'm chasing after him, cussing. I will say this for Speck, Speck has taught me a whole new vocabulary. I thought I was a competent cusser. I believe the first 50, 60 years of my life, I was pretty competent at it. But no, I have invented words to curse Speck as I'm chasing him
Are
down.
there any you can share on a family network?
Not a damn one.
Mm.
Not a one.
And I don't think the Southern Festival of Books has a beep, beep, beep.
There is not enough beeps in the world to cover up what I have called that dog.
Well, let me ask you this though. When you were describing Speck, just saying beep this, I'm not going to be sedentary. I've gotten I've been knocked down and I've been cut up and yeah, life really stinks, but I'm going to go right back out there and go terrorize the countryside. I'm wondering if we can talk about you a bit. You know, Speck comes into your family's life, and your life at a real low point for you, and it hasn't been all that easy since. That's for sure. You what did it mean? Could you just describe a bit where you were? So 4 years ago is when he came in.
Yeah, I found him about 4 years ago. I had come home to help take care of my mom among other reasons, and my mom had survived a heart attack. She had survived colon cancer. She had very successful surgery, so she was doing pretty good. But that she's 84, so everything is serious. And then I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and after the chemo, I came through it good. And if you're going to have that disease, that's the kind you want to have. So I survived the chemo, but it kind of burned some holes in my memory. Uh, and memory is my stock in trade. And then somehow I managed to slip into heart and kidney failure, um, uh, which have stabilized. So I'm.
Are you doing better?
Oh yeah. I'm obviously I'd be doing a lot better if I had at least once in my life said, "Hey, I need to take better care of myself." But no, it was a period where I was living. I think I said in the book I was living in doctors' offices and counting needles and counting hours, and it was absolutely nothing that every family doesn't go through. Absolutely nothing that most families don't encounter. So I say in the book that this was just my turn. I'd written about uh, people in trouble all my writing life, on other sides of the world, and this was just my turn. And so yeah, I never really, the folks in the country in my part of Alabama, they don't call into work and say, "Hey, Hubbard, I won't be into work today because I'm feeling down." They don't say, "Well, I won't be in to take my shift on the forklift because I'm in conflict with my inner child." They don't do stuff like that. But people who cared about me, they said, "You need to, go see somebody." You know, and there's this wonderful scene in the book where I am in the waiting room of the psychiatrist, and I'm looking at people and they're looking at me, and we're all trying to decide what kind of crazy we've got. It's what kind of crazy have you got? And you go back there, and an honest to God scientist says, "I think that dog is good for you." So I have clinical evidence that the dog is good. He said, "I think that dog is good for you. I think that dog gives you something to care about that you didn't have to care about before." And, some things you do out of duty. And it doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person. You just do them out of duty. How are you not going to take care of your people if you can? But then the dog becomes such a part of your life that he becomes duty too. He's as much of my duty to that my greater life, as anything else, I think, in a way. So, and that's about as deep as I expected to get on a dog book.
Well, can I ask a question to take us a little bit deeper at the risk of making it look like we're in that psychiatrist's office?
Yeah, God, no, but go ahead.
To what degree? I mean, you mentioned that you have traveled the world. You Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, wrote for the New York Times, among many other well-established publications. You've been in Haiti. You reported on horrible things happening in Haiti, the Oklahoma bombings, Jonesboro. You were out there fighting the fight in your younger years. And to what degree would you say that Speck is a bit of part of part of who you are / who you were / who you wish you still were? Does that make any sense, Rick? What I'm asking?
I think it can. You look, I remember several years ago after 9/11, I quit a book tour for Ava's Man, which was the book about my grandpa that we had a lot of luck with, and I quit the book tour and go to Islamabad. And over the next few days, we moved from like Islamabad to Peshawar to um, Karachi to Rawalpindi. We just kind of kept moving, writing about the genesis of the hatred that led to the bombing. Uh, and it was very exciting. Uh, and I cannot say that I regretted any second of it. And so there, but you do kind of get used. And please, I don't want to make it seem like I was dodging like bullets every second. That's not true. But I just did what we did, but it was exciting, and I think I had reached a point in my life where, yeah, you could probably get somebody that would ship you back somewhere and let you do some more of that stuff. But the fact is that you get older. I dare say get old. And that settles down on your shoulders a lot heavier than I thought it would. And I can look at Speck. Speck is he limps not necessarily from the ACL, but just from all those wounds that he got. He has been in. He was almost killed in 2 dog fights just since he came here. We took measures to make sure that never happened again. But he would run when he first got here. He was just resting up. He ran away as soon as he heard those dogs in the distance. Now he's here to stay, and but yeah, he's got one good eye, and he limps on kind of alternate legs every day, and he's been beat up and roughed up, and life has done a number on him pretty good. But
he's found home. Right?
Yeah, he's home. He's a tough guy knocked down.
Wait, are we talking about the dog? Or are we?
Yeah, he's a
Rick Bragg.
He's a tough guy knocked down, and he was in here earlier. He and I had a very healthy lunch I had a big giant iced tea, and he had a box of chicken nuggets. And he came down and he swallowed his nuggets in record time, and he came up and he got scratched on the ears. Then he was gone. He heard something outside and he was gone, and he claws at the door. The door is an abomination now. My mom's ashamed of it, but yeah, I mean, I guess I feel something in kinship with him, but I do know one thing. Most days I smell better than he does.
Well, you're not rolling him over.
Well, not yet anyway, but who knows what will happen if my mind continues to deteriorate.
Well, again, I look at the long course of your really productive career, and that transition that you made after 9/11 from writing about, sort of the worst of the human spirit, right? The killing, the fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't, it wasn't like there's a break and then, because you were writing Ava's Man around.
Yeah, the same time, really. Yeah, the same time.
So it wasn't there was 9/11 and then you just moved over to writing about your life, your family, your memories. What was it? What happened in your thinking when you made that shift from journalist to memoir writer in a certain sense, and in where were you in regard to the role, the purpose, the meaning, the power of writing and storytelling? Because you were telling different stories now, but
Right.
did your perspective about what writing itself means change?
No, it didn't. And I'll tell you the great mistake I think that a lot of people, and I can't tell anyway, I have no moral professional currency to tell anybody how to do this craft. But I do think that the notion that you can't write the news of the day in a narrative sense, I always managed to pull that off a little bit. That may not have always worked, and it might not have always been met with, acclaim, but I always thought that the news of the day could be presented that way. And I detested that snapshot kind of storytelling, just a blip here and a blip there and a paragraph here and a paragraph there. I just hated that stuff. So there was not a great shift in the style of storytelling. I wish there was. I could point to and say, well, this is where I really turned a narrative corner. But it's not true. What happened was this. I knew, the first book that I was going to write was going to be about my mom, because while that may sound schmarmy to some people, she really did go 18 years without a new dress so that I could have school clothes. That's a fact. So I knew that was going to be the first book. I knew that the second book, and yes, the reality of the writing world does have something to do with that. But my grandfather was a bootlegger and fist fighter and roofer, and he did time in the federal pen in Atlanta. I never met him, so I built me a grandfather for the second book. Why these things instead of writing about the geopolitical situation in Central Asia? Well, because I don't know a damn thing really about the geopolitical situation. Did I go and write about these places? Yes. And I felt always like I was kind of dropped out of a bucket into these places. And I never really knew a lot about them. I admit that now. But I did the best I could. But I felt that if you were going to do 300 and 350 pages on something, it should be something that you know something about. And the people of the foothills of the Appalachians, when we did the Jesse Lynch book, we did it because, it was off the news. It was much more similar to what I did for a living. And the Jerry Lee Lewis book was, well, hell, it was Jerry Lee. How do you not write about the guy who made Elvis cry?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I just thought I'd write about some things and some people maybe I knew something about.
Do you think I sense I remember some in the early 2000s hearing you say something in the wake of 9/11, this melancholy in a way of how can I change the world with writing? Um, um, where is your thinking on that now? How can you change the world with the dog book?
Well,
It's a story, isn't it? In the end,
yeah, I think when you're writing big stories off the news, the only thing that you really can do is put a human face on a tragedy. That's all you can do. That's the only power that you have. I've never been a particularly good reporter. I've never broken a story in my life. But as a writer of books, once again, you still are putting a human face on someone that you care about, someone that you want to see and maybe appreciate even. You want to nudge them in that direction or shove them in that direction. The dog book was a little more, God almighty, I hate to use $40 words like this, but it was a little more introspective. It was a little more selfish. Uh, I wanted to write about this bad dog, but I discovered something about bad dogs. Bad dogs don't give very good quotes. Bad dogs just don't give very good narrative. So you got to read into the dog what you believe the dog is thinking. And now Speck is very expressive as far as happy, sad, angry, petulant. He's easier, I think, than most dogs. He's not enigmatic, but yeah, it's probably more personal in a lot of ways. Isn't it funny that you do a personal book and it would be built around a creature that loves to eat carrion?
There's a point though when Speck chases off, he successfully chases off the pack. I guess maybe we can end with this. And you say you wonder, he was the victor.
Yeah,
he did it. But then there's a moment you say, well, maybe some of those dogs were also lost as well. Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, stray dogs in some ways are very much like people. People who grow up poor and hit it big often lose their compassion for the people that are coming up the ladder behind them. And Southerners in particular, they will kick at the fingers of the people coming up the ladder behind them. It's a strange, peculiar thing. Stray dogs, when they are saved, when they are found, become a part of the dirt. They become a part of the land that they are delivered unto. And Speck was ferocious to begin with. He was, we think, the leader of these stray dogs. They have a leader, and they fight over females. They fight over, overturned garbage cans, hamburger wrappers. The few times that we had seen Speck in the ditches, he was fighting. And then we take him in, and he becomes this fearless protector of the place. And when strays wander onto the land, he hit them like a bomb, and because he thought his job. Now, he's an Australian, he's a herding dog. He's an Australian Shepherd, or at least he's mostly an Australian Shepherd. I asked the vet if that was true, and the vet said, well, that's as good a thing to call him as any. And but it's in his genes to herd and protect. And we have some livestock. And he would just launch himself. And it was the same way with when the coyotes one or two coyotes, he barely even noticed when you'd hear them in the distance. But when they would come together in a group and start singing to each other, Speck would freeze, and he would wait, for the sound to get closer, and unafraid, unafraid.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the idea of melancholy. One of the things that I just really enjoyed about this book is the rip-roaring laughter. I surprised friends and family as I was reading it because it's a very funny book.
I hope so.
At the same time, there are these moments of, as you said, deep introspection and quiet melancholy that I think, particularly in the last chapters, you finished this as COVID was bearing down and describe the impact of COVID on your family. And so it's really about this idea of being a lonely dog in life and also being a pack, being part of a pack. And the book is really just a really beautiful reflection on, I'd say, the idea of belonging and the idea of family and how we dust ourselves off and find the strength to keep going. So, listen, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation, Rick. And I want to really encourage this book, Speckled Beauty, A Dog and His People by Rick Bragg. And please be sure to pick up a copy at your independent bookstore around Nashville. That's Parnassus. And we're just looking forward to the next Festival of Books in person. And we'll be eager to see what you have coming up.
Well, thank you. Now, this was fun. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
I so enjoyed it. Thank you for being here, Rick.
All right.